My life is beautiful. The way I feel inside is beautiful. We connected with Megan Cohen today to talk about her work in hope and healing with the Grace Project in the homeless community of Philadelphia. In her own story of addiction, she was a runner and managed to get through the doors at 71 different treatment centers across the country. She could get through detox, but couldn't handle digging into emotional issues. She now says, it wasn't hard, it was just uncomfortable. Enjoy. Welcome to the Illuminate Recovery Podcast. We shed light on mental health issues, mental illness, and addiction recovery. Ways to cope, manage, and inspire. Beyond the self-care we will discuss, you may need the help of a licensed professional. My name's Kurt Nider. I'm a husband, father, entrepreneur, a handyman, and a student of life. I avoid conflict, I deflect with humor, and I'm fascinated by the human experience.
And I'm Shelley Mangum. I am a clinical mental health counselor, and my favorite role of all times is grandma. I am a seeker of truth, and I feel like life should be approached with tremendous curiosity.
I ask the dumb questions.
I fill in the gaps.
The Illuminate Recovery Podcast is brought to you by Illuminate Billing Advocates. Make billing and collection simple with leader in substance abuse and mental health billing services. Verification and analysis of benefits, pre-authorizations, utilization management, accurate claim submission and management, denial and appeal management, and industry-leading reporting. Improve your practice's cash flow and your ability to help your clients with Illuminate Billing Advocates.
Today on the podcast, Megan Cohen is joining Kurt and I. Megan is the founder and president at Philadelphia Grace Project. She's also a community coordinator at All In Solutions. She loves to talk about hope, charity, outreach, and nonprofit. She's been in the addiction and mental health treatment arena for a very long time, and she's super passionate about helping people. One other thing I'd love to note about Megan before we get started is that she's currently in the middle of a Philadelphia Grace Project where they're trying to select the next Give a Little Hope recipient within the next 2 weeks. All prior nominations that haven't been selected will carry over along with some additional nominations. So if you're interested in nominating somebody, you can jump onto LinkedIn, and Megan will also give some contact information today for that. So just want to give a plug for that because what a great cause.
Thank you.
Megan, thanks for being on today and being willing to share with us. It's super fun to have you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I always love the story, right, of how someone got into or gets into mental health and substance abuse world. Because, I don't know, it's not everybody's like me, but I was oblivious that there was even a world out there for years and years and years. And so maybe just start there. How did you get connected, and what did that look like?
So actually, through my own personal journey, so I struggled with addiction for about 8 or 9 years. I had been in countless treatment centers. To date, I've been in 71 treatment centers. So I was pretty well versed in it that way from my own experience. And I ended up this time around, I always knew that I enjoyed helping people. But once I was able to kind of get my life together, and find my direction, I ended up realizing how much I actually enjoy helping other people that struggle with the things that I struggled with. I started the Grace Project, and that wasn't something that I didn't have a plan to start it. It actually was literally the night my mom picked me up in Kensington this last time around. I asked her to bring out food and water, and she did. And the people out there, one of the girls was crying to her about how grateful she was. And I said to my mom, and not necessarily thinking there was any truth behind it, because I still didn't know if I could ever get sober and stay sober. But I was one day I'm going to come out and do this. Right. And I said, I didn't actually have plans of that becoming something that I did with my life. And then when I had about a year sober, my mom texted me and she was like, hey, so if I wanted to bring food out to Kensington, what areas would I go to? And I was like, no, Mom, you're not going out there without me. You don't know those streets like I do. Absolutely not. I'm coming, and I'll make a post and see if any of my friends want to come, through the program or whatever. And that post like ended up taking off. It got tons of reshares, it got tons of likes, tons of comments. I got a bunch of messages. And like once I saw how many people like wanted to get involved and be a part of it, the vision for it kind of grew. And initially, like I was like, let me make this separate page so that, people can follow what we're doing there. And it's not all on my personal page. And, it just kind of went from there and it just happened, it just happened. And I realized like, I wanted Grace Project to be something that lived on even like when I'm gone. And that I wanted to get a 501c3 because I didn't only want to help addicts. I didn't want to only help people that are struggling with mental health issues, but like people that are losing hope for any reason, that just needs a reminder that there's still good in the world. There's still beauty in the world. And like, we're here and we see you, and I just went from there. And through that, I had people reach out to me, just seeing like, how active I was, not only with everything in the community, but even in my own fellowship, and trying to be there for other people that are struggling with the things that I was struggling with. My first job reached out to me that was in the field, and asked me if I was interested in a job, and I went in, talked to them, and my journey's continued from there. And I've just kind of kept going from there, and I kind of found my place in outreach. So I enjoy kind of placing people, watching them grow, and it's a beautiful thing, especially when you know how they're feeling, like you get it. So.
Well, it is a beautiful thing. It's kind of fun to listen to your story and hear the way it's cycled and the way that part of your own healing process was getting involved in healing and helping others.
Absolutely.
I'm really curious a little bit more. I'd like to ask a little bit more about your journey. I mean, you're in 71 different treatment programs. That's not a small number, even for most people, right? Some get it in one, and some get it in 4 or 5 or 6, but 71 is significant. So
We've heard some pretty big numbers. 71's got to be the new record, I think.
I think so too.
71's pretty good.
Yeah, it's up there. And granted, like most of them were AMAs. I think I left against medical advice 65 times. Because I was a runner. Like I had so much stuff that I had to face and like things that I did while I was living out of line with what my morals and what my values were, along with just like, all the trauma that kind of accumulated because I was homeless all over the place, multiple different states. So like the things that I had gone through, I didn't want to face those things. So like once I started, not only like sometimes I could get through the detox. It wasn't always like the physical sickness that took me back out. But if I made it through that and then we start getting to like the emotional piece and like kind of uncovering all that, I got so scared, and I didn't want to face it. And it was so much easier because there was so much fear. I didn't know how to live like, as a successful adult person in the world. I didn't know how to pay. I didn't know how to do anything. And it was so much easier for me to just continue to run back to what I knew, where I had no responsibilities. I didn't have to worry about like, failing again, because if I just go right back into being a failure, I don't have to accumulate anything just to lose it. And that fear kept me out for a while, and that's why I kept running. I had to realize like, just because I'm still having thoughts of using, it doesn't mean that I'm not ready. And maybe I should take like some simple steps and suggestions to ensure that I have a better chance at recovering. And once I did that, like once I did aftercare, recovery house, like all of these things, all of a sudden I got it, 71 treatment centers later. And now here I am, and my life is beautiful. And the way that I feel inside is beautiful. And it was literally like the biggest difference was me just being willing to do something different.
It's an incredible story. And the relatability, your relatability has got to be incredible just because of where you're at and the run, right? I mean, I can only imagine how many people recognize that feeling of, nah, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't, I'm not doing this, right? Can you talk about, like, when did you start? When was your first homeless experience? And how long was that duration? And what was it like being homeless? What's that culture like?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, like, homelessness is different all over, and I've learned that, like, through my journey. So the first time that I was homeless was actually, like, there was times where my mom would still let me in her house, and I would choose to be out in Philadelphia. But, like, the first time that I was actually homeless was when I call it the Florida Shuffle. I went out to Florida for treatment, and I'd go to a recovery house, and then I'd use, and I just kind of kept doing that. And it got to the point where I ended up, like, I found the worst area that was out there that I knew I would have easy access to drugs. I went out there and, like, I didn't leave for a few months. So I was homeless out in Overtown for a while. And, like, it's bad. It's bad out there. Like, the violence is crazy. The things that happen, like people get kidnapped all the time. I had somebody try to keep me locked in a hotel room, stuff like that. And it's like, it's just so much different, and finally, like I got out of there, and then I was homeless out in California. Again, it's totally different. So what's the same, like across the board, is like a feeling of helplessness and a feeling of like, how do I get out of this? And like this last time around I was actually homeless in Detroit, and I came back to Philadelphia because I was like, the drugs are better, as horrible as that sounds. That was part of my motivation. But also, like, mom's never going to kick me out, right? Like, that's what I thought. I was dead wrong. I got home, and my mom saw what I looked like. My face was picked apart. I was super skinny. She took one look at me, and she knew I was using. So, of course, like, being a mother, she tried to help me, and, I wasn't willing yet. I wasn't at that point. And like as that kind of continued to progress, I ended up stealing from my family. And at that point, they're like, you know what, you're not welcome in the house. Like, you're on your own. And at this point, like, I didn't even have a car or anything to sleep in. So like I was completely out in Kensington, not by choice for once, homeless with nothing. And like I just felt like I was stuck. I didn't know what resources to call. Like, I didn't even have a phone because I pawned mine. Like, I just felt like I was kind of lost and just out in the mix out there, and I was totally alone. And I knew my family was there for me, like, if I got sober or wanted to get help. But, otherwise, like, I was on my own. And like through a series of events, like, and that's kind of what I try to recreate with our Kensington outreach. Random strangers showing me kindness, because there's power in like tough love from family, and then like kindness from strangers. There's a lot of power in it, because like I expect my family to see something in me. They knew me before drugs. I don't expect a stranger when I'm, walking around like 130 pounds soaking wet with my face picked apart, smelling terrible. I don't expect them to, necessarily see the same thing. So, when I was shown that kindness from complete strangers who knew exactly what I was, and specifically this one woman, bringing me into her house and giving me food and, clean clothes and letting me take a shower, it kind of like sparked this little bit of hope that was missing for so long in me. And that's when I called my mom and had her come pick me up. And like I said, I did things differently, but it's hard to say like there's no, outside of the feelings that come along with being homeless, like feeling alone, feeling hopeless and all that, it's different everywhere you go. It really is. I've been all over the place and experienced it. But those were the things that were consistent. It was the way that it felt. And it felt
What was
horrible.
the catalyst with that woman? Was she looking for someone to help? How did you stumble into this situation?
No. So I call, like, there's a couple people I refer to in my story as my angels. One's a man that had picked me up when I was walking down 95 when it was pouring rain, wrapped in a blanket, soaking wet, gave me a ride, was completely respectful towards me, told me a little bit about what he does. And he was like really my first like seed that was planted. He actually gave him, because I said to him, I was like, why would you pick me up? Like, obviously you know what I am. Why'd you let me in your car? He said, yeah, but you're still a person. And then he started telling me like what he does, and he gives haircuts to the homeless. And like he's out in Kensington all the time, and like he's going through his own struggles. And I remember like him dropping me off and being like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Because when I was getting in the car, like, I'm like, okay, this guy, like something bad's going to happen. This is not a good idea. But I was so cold that I didn't care. I just wanted to get in that car. And I was okay with whatever happened. If he killed me, fine. Like, I didn't care, because that's the point that I was at emotionally. And having somebody treat me like that with no other motive blew my mind, because I only knew at this point, I knew darkness. You know what I mean? Like, my world was so surrounded by darkness because of the places that I put myself. I wasn't used to that kind of light in somebody, and like I said, outside of it being my family, it kind of hit different. So that was like my first little seed that was planted. But it wasn't enough yet for me to be like, okay, let's get it together. So like I go back out to Kensington, and this woman, like, so at this point, like, my back's up against the wall. I have nobody to turn to. Like I said, I don't have a phone, nothing like that. And I was never religious, but like I knew that there was this thing called prayer. So I felt like that was the only place that I had to turn to, was like talking to something. I didn't know what it was, but begging something to help me. And that was literally what I did again and again. Like, listen, please, if anyone's out there listening, like, show me that my life is meant for more. Show me that this isn't it, or just take me out, because I can't live like this anymore. And like, after saying this a couple of times, I was actually in an abandoned house one night, and I remember being on the second floor, and I had just gotten high, and I was bawling my eyes out, and it was the same thing, like begging for something to intervene in some way, because I didn't know what to do anymore. I felt like I had tried everything. And I walk out of this house directly after, and as I'm walking down the block, this woman grabs me. And again, being in the Kensington section of Philadelphia, it's not a good area. So I'm thinking someone's trying to fight me, and I turn around, like, ready to hit this woman. And another lady comes running up, and she's like, no, she just wants to talk to you. So the woman who grabbed me, she spoke Spanish and, like, super, super broken English. So the woman who was translating was like, something's drawing her to you. She feels like you don't belong out here. She's been watching you for a couple of days, and she wants to know what your story is. Now, I sat there and I told this woman with complete my prayers, like, transparency, like, listen, I robbed my family. I have felony warrants. Like, I've been in treatment tons of times. I'm addicted to heroin, and I'm addicted to crack. And, like, this is my life. I have nobody. So, like, I'm out here getting high, and, like, this is what my life is, and being totally transparent about it. And the woman goes, well, she wants to take you into her house and let you shower, give you clean clothes and food. Now, again, I'm out in Kensington every single week with my nonprofit, and I'm giving people stuff out there, and I'm trying to talk to them and let them know, like, hey, like, I'm here and I care, and I'll help you in any way that I can. But I don't think I would have done what that woman did, especially having the knowledge of, like, the things that, I don't want to say the type of person I was, because I wasn't a bad person, but I was sick, and I was acting on that sickness with the things that I was doing. So her bringing me into her house was very risky at that time. But she did it anyway. And when I went to go leave, like, I took a shower, we go in, and the woman who's translating doesn't come in. It's just me and this lady. So now she's in there with just me. And she points up the stairs, and she's like, up, and I go up and I take a shower. She had clean clothes waiting on the sink for me when I got out of the shower, and I come back down the stairs and she had food. And like, I ate and I go to leave. And again, like, we're not communicating. But she goes to give me a hug, and, like, we hugged each other. And when I pulled away, both of us started crying. So that, like, we don't know each other. We don't know each other. We just met. She's been watching me for a little bit. I'm praying for, like, something that this is now a direct answer to those prayers. And that was, like, kind of my moment. I, like, remember looking up and being like, okay, I see you, and I ended up calling my mom. That was my last night out in Kensington. I called my mom the next day. I went to Prevention Point, and I called her, and I was like, hey, listen, I'm ready for you to come get me. And she did, and she turned me into jail that night. She called the sheriffs. She took me to the hospital first because I was all banged up. Took me to the hospital and, called the sheriffs, and it was the best thing that she could have done. It wasn't my first time in jail, but I was at a different point, like a different point at this, like, and I had faith again. So when I went in there, I remember, like, when I used to hear in meetings, people would be like, oh, I went to jail and I was relieved. And I'd be like, yeah, okay. Obviously you haven't really been there, because I have, but I finally understood what those people meant. And, I just had I had different faith about me. And I knew that, I knew that everything was going to be okay if I just trusted the process. And I did. I fully committed to it. It wasn't, I hate when people say that, it was hard, because it's not hard. It's just uncomfortable. And I was super uncomfortable for a while because I wasn't doing the things that I was so used to doing every other time. Like, I was doing something totally different. I didn't know if I was going to fail or if I was going to succeed, but I just stuck with it, and I kept faith, and, here I am today. So.
Megan, what an incredible story. So what I heard you say a lot of things, but one of the things I heard you say was you never once considered taking your own life. That was one thing I heard in your voice, is that I never heard you say you were so depressed you wanted to die. Now, granted, you wanted out of that life, but I didn't ever hear you say you were going to take your own life. But I also heard you suggest that it's pretty darn dangerous on the streets. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how many times you had some of those turning points to where you could have really been killed or your life been taken. How many times did that happen while you were on the street?
Honestly, I can't even put a number on it. And that's what I mean when it's like every different experience with, like, being homeless, like, it's different, but there's, like, some similarities and like the feelings and the fact that, like, you're alone. So, like, I should be dead not only from overdoses, but like from people holding me against my will, from people putting their hands on me, like from violence, like there's multiple reasons that like it blows my mind looking at how many like near death situations I was in, to know that I'm still here. You know what I mean? And it's like, and again, that's like where obviously I should have had faith at that point, but it wasn't. When your eyes aren't open to it, you don't see it. And my eyes weren't open to it until like this last time around when I got sober, and looking back now and realizing like how it's a miracle. It's a miracle that I'm still here, and not just because of getting off of drugs, but everything else that I had faced too, from like the situations that I put myself in.
Yeah. That's crazy. When was that last time? What's your sobriety date?
July 17th of 2019. So I have a little bit over 2 years now.
Yeah, cool. That's amazing. So tell me more about the Grace Project. Obviously, you're working with homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
Is that are these kind of, are you helping people get into treatment? Are you helping with the recovery process, or are these kind of primarily earthly comforts type thing, helping people get set up and have some of those essentials?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. We have a couple different programs. The Give a Little Hope one that was mentioned earlier, and our Hope for the Holidays. Those are designed for children and families. But as far as like our adult focus and the focus in Kensington, again, you can't make somebody want this, right? So like, if they don't want it, the very least that I can do is I can plant seeds. I can let them know that, hey, I care. Hey, I've been here. Most of my volunteers have been here. And show them that, like, look, it's possible. And when you're ready, we're going to help you. And then we have the people that do want help. And when they want help, like, we have never not been able to find somebody a bed. Now, granted, like, it's hard. Sometimes it may take time. You look at different issues with insurance and like having Medicaid beds, or people don't have insurance and stuff like that. But between me and the volunteers that I have and the connections that I have, like, with people that just genuinely care and understand that, like, no matter how many times someone's been in treatment or no matter what their situation is, there's still hope. We're giving our all. Somebody says they want to go to treatment, and we know that window, like, the more time that goes on, that window's getting smaller for them being willing, because most of us have experienced it. So they say they want to go, we get right on it, and we place them, and we've placed a good amount of people. We've been around for a little bit over a year, good amount of people in treatment. And it's just, and that's something too, like, there's families that reach out to me after the fact, where families that their loved one is currently still struggling. And I let them know the same thing. Like, look, they don't have to be homeless out in Kensington for me to care and help. Any struggling person, that, especially when it comes to addiction, reach out to me. I'm going to help you figure it out. You know what I mean? And I stay true to that. So like I said, families will reach out even if their loved one's not in Kensington, just because they don't really know what to do, or they've heard my story. And with that, like, I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting in all the work that I can. I let them know, like, I'll talk to the person that's struggling. Get them to agree to get on the phone with me. I will talk to them. I will do what I can to try to show them, like, because a lot of times fear keeps us out, like I said. So it's not necessarily that they don't want it, but they're scared. And they're scared to try, and they don't know what to expect, or they don't know any other type of life. And that's all relatable to me. So if they can get the loved one to agree to get on the phone with me, or even meet me in person, we're going to make it happen. And currently there's a situation going on where I've been in contact with, the family members, and, their loved ones in treatment finally agreed to go to treatment, and they're trying to navigate, like, okay, now what do we do? And I'm in constant contact with them, trying to give the best advice that I can to help, increase the chances for their loved one. So it's a little mixture. Like I said, the Grace Project's not only about addiction. Addiction is definitely included, but it's about hope. And that includes, much more than addiction. It includes much more than the person addicted. It's their families. And that's what we try to do. We try to help people that struggle with addiction, poverty, or sickness.
You've got your feet in a lot of different areas. And I'm wondering, how do you keep it all balanced, and how do you take care of Megan in all of the things that you do? And I know it's not always easy keeping a nonprofit up and going. And so can you talk about that piece and how you keep moving forward in the difficulty?
Yeah, I mean, a big piece of it, honestly, like it's a lot of faith, because I didn't plan on starting a nonprofit, and I had no idea what I was doing when I decided, okay, I have a bigger vision, and maybe, if we start a nonprofit, like we can go a lot further. I didn't know what I was doing. So just kind of like having faith that if I was doing the best that I could, things were going to work out. That's how it's been. And like you said, I mean, I do have between and I'm also in school. So like between my actual job, my nonprofit, and then school, and then like having a life and being active in recovery, it's a lot. And sometimes it's a lot to keep up with. And there's days where, I feel super overwhelmed if I have stuff to do for all of them. But I just keep the faith, like, okay, give it your best shot. You're going to figure it out. Like, it's going to be okay. And I navigate as best as I can. So, like, if that looks like me chunking out, okay, well, I have this, and this to do. This amount of time is going towards Grace Project. This is going towards work. This is going towards school. I have to do whatever I can to try to get some sort of organization down to keep things going. And on the nonprofit end, like, one of the biggest struggles is, like, it's all volunteer work. Like we don't have anyone on salary. We don't have anyone that we pay for anything. So we're all volunteers, myself included. And with that, sometimes it's really hard to for the behind the scenes stuff to get people that are motivated because it's hard work. So I ask for help and I accept help when I can get it. But, it's not easy. And there's things that fall on me 100% and a lot of behind the scenes stuff too. But I do the best that I can with it. And I kind of go at whatever pace is something that I can maintain. And I also realize I have to make sure I'm okay, because if I crumble at this point, Grace Project's not fully able to stand on its own 2 feet yet. Eventually it will be that's the goal, that we're going to get it to the point where I don't have to be as involved in everything and it can keep growing and maybe we can get into other states and, have locations in other states. But we're still new, so it's not at that point yet. So, for the time being, it's a lot of me having to make sure that I'm okay and that I give myself some boundaries, all right, we're not going to run ourselves into the ground today. Come revisit it tomorrow. And some days, I call them my park days, I'll have to take an entire day. If it's nice out, go to a park, take my dogs, just hang out, me and nature and, kind of decompress. And that's what works for me. And like I said, sometimes it seems more overwhelming than it does other times, but it always works out. It always passes they're just feelings. Feeling overwhelmed is just a feeling. So eventually it's going to pass. Eventually I'm going to figure it out. It might not be in the time frame that I want to, but I'm going to figure it out, and I just, like I said, I make it work. And the end goal is that it's going to be able to work on its own. It's going to be able to be its own thing. Obviously I'm always going to be involved. It's my baby. I literally pour my heart and soul into it every single day. It's my main focus every single day. What else can I do for the Grace Project? But eventually, because watching it take its own form has been super cool, and watching it become its own thing and not Megan's project or anything like that. Watching it become what it has already, I just can't wait to see where it goes down the line, and the more people that get involved and, the more people that donate, the more people we can help, and just all of these different factors as time goes on that are going to change. It's going to be beautiful. It really is. And I have a lot of high hopes for it. I have a lot of hopes for how many people we can help, how many areas we can touch, and, but it's one step at a time.
Wow. And I love the piece where you just said, you just have to have faith to move forward, that this is what you need to be doing. And then it kind of evolves from there. So that's a powerful piece for people, for everybody, right? Not just people in recovery, but for everybody we often kind of get stuck in where we're at, but we have this dream out here of doing something more, and following that is not always easy. So I love what you've done. I love what you've created.
Thank you.
It takes a lot to create a nonprofit and keep it running. Where do you get funding from? How does that happen, and how can people help?
So right now, like I said, we've only been around for a little bit over a year and just recently got our 501c3. So we're all small donation based. I think our biggest donation to date was $2,000 something after somebody held an event for us. We haven't had our first official fundraiser or anything yet. So we're literally, we run on small donations. And that's how people can help, because donating in-kind stuff helps with Kensington trips, but that's something that we pretty much are good on. We have, the main people that donate to that or cook food for us or anything along those lines. Our other programs, It's just like when we do stuff for the kids, we have to pay for the limo that we pick them up in, the tickets to wherever we decide to take them. We always buy them something. We always buy them like a little present or something like that. And all that stuff takes money. So right now, like, we're limited on, the goal is to do that at least once a month. But right now we're limited on how often we can do it. We've done 2 so far. But that's how people can help. And if people have experience with like behind the scenes stuff for a nonprofit, they can help that way too. They can reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to accept the help, for them to volunteer. So really, like, that's what it is, donating and volunteering and sharing, spreading the word about us and letting more people know, because if you can't donate or you can't volunteer, you might know somebody who can. And like, the reality of it is, that's why when people tell me like, how amazing they think the Grace Project is or how cool it is, like, I don't take credit for it. Yes, I made that initial post. Yes, I incorporated us and I do some of the behind the scenes stuff, but we would be nothing without all of our volunteers and the people who donate. Like, we would be nothing. I could not do it on my own. So getting involved in any way possible, like, that's what keeps us going. That's what our fuel is.
Well, and it's like you said, it doesn't take much, volunteer an hour here or an hour there, and it's huge. And
yes.
And people who are on the street, just like you shared your story, they need a piece of hope. They need to know that somebody can see them as a human being and is ready to help them when they're ready for that help.
Absolutely.
Okay, this might be off topic. Maybe it doesn't fit, but I have to ask it. It's just coming up for me. So talk about, when people are in addiction recovery or, any kind of recovery, relationships become a very interesting kind of a dynamic. What's your take on relationships in recovery?
Yeah, so like, be patient with them. That would be like my best words of wisdom. My family was pretty fed up with me this last time around, but I was patient. I made sure, like, my uncles specifically didn't talk to me for a while because of what I had done to my grandmother when I stole from her, and understandably so. And I'd been in treatment so many times, in and out, and nothing was changing. So like, a lot of times in the past, I expected them, I just wanted to be like, you know what? I went to treatment, forgive me. You know what I mean? And like, that's not right. That's not the way it works. And they're entitled to their time to process things and to get through things. So like, I gave them some time before I reached out to them, because I wanted to show them, like, look, this time is different. Like, I'm actually doing things, and, I'm serious about it. And, I'm working really hard on my recovery and making sure that I don't do any more harm. So after, like, they saw that for a little while, then they were willing to sit down with me, and I have a relationship with all of them today. My relationship with my family is absolutely amazing. My nephew, I had a nephew, my first nephew, when in sobriety, and it was perfect. Like, when he was born, I literally had just gotten out of treatment, and he was born 2 days after my birthday. And I remember being in jail the last time around, and my brother, like, because I was so bad out on the streets, apparently they told me that my sister-in-law was pregnant, and I didn't remember. So when I talked to my mom in jail, and she was like, yeah, your brother had his gender reveal, it's a boy. I was like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. So like, I called my brother, and we're talking about it, and I'm apologizing to him, and he was like, I just want you to be present. I want you to be his aunt, and like, I don't want to have to explain to him one day, like, who the girl in the picture is, and like, that was his aunt, and like, she's no longer with us. Like, I remember how hard that hit me, right? Because I'm like, I don't want you to have to do that either. And I promised him, like, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I'm present in that little boy's life, and that not only am I present, but I'm an example for him and somebody that, like, he can rely on, and that's going to protect him. And, I've held true to that. And my relationship in the process with my brother has become amazing. And my sister-in-law, like, we're actually like a family again. It's insane. And then outside of that, with friends, like, I have the best friends that I've ever had today, and it's like, because they're genuine connections, and most of them, there's other people some of them are in recovery, some of them aren't, but I'm able to show up as a friend, and I'm able to be there and be somebody that they can trust and somebody that they can rely on, and it's amazing when you put that into a relationship, what you get back, and you learn, like, what types of people, who should I invest my time in? Is this person someone I should surround myself with? And I've learned, like, you are who you surround yourself with. So I make sure, like, if I'm going to be putting my time into somebody, like, it's somebody who would do the same for me, and somebody who's living their life the right way. And like I said, I'll always be there for somebody struggling, but the ones that, like, I call my friends today, we're all very similar. And like my boyfriend, like my relationship with him, it's super healthy. We communicate, and it took a while, to get to that point where I was able to do that. Like, it's not something that I recommend in super early sobriety, because you have to be able to effectively communicate with somebody and let them know like where you're at with things, and, how you feel about stuff, and do it in a way that like, it's not going to be toxic. And that shows in all aspects of my life and all relationships across the board today. And it's a beautiful thing. And that's part of like, the areas like where I find my inner peace is and stuff like that, like real genuine connection with other people.
I love it. And I love the way you talk about it too, because it is at the core, we are all about connection, right?
Right.
It's what makes us tick inside is when we can have a meaningful relationship and it means something. Just like you said, you can connect with these people and you can show up for them as well as they show up for you. There is something about that you can't put any kind of price on that. It's where we as human beings as a core kind of resonate, right? It's a happy place
Right.
for us. So I love the way you describe that and the work you've done around it, because I think relationships are probably one of the most difficult things that we do as human beings.
Oh,
and,
yes.
and it's an
They
indication.
take work. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And like a lot of people, they don't realize, like, you kind of get what you put in.
Yeah.
It's not like I can't expect my friends to always call me. You know what I mean? I have to call them. I have to check on them, make sure they're okay. They take work, but they're so worth it.
Yeah.
They're so worth it.
And sometimes I have to apologize. Oh man, I did not show
yeah.
up the way I wanted, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was bad. And I love that, right? Because we can own that part of us too. So I love the healthy Megan, right? You look fantastic. I'm picturing you on the street looking like you looked on the street, and this is nothing like that. You look beautiful and amazing.
Not at all.
And
You would not recognize me.
oh, isn't it crazy? Yeah, it's just crazy
It's
the way that
insane.
happens. But we can recover from that, and you're a perfect example of that. Maybe before we end this, let people know how to connect with you. What's the best ways for them to give and contribute as well to the project that you're doing and the Philadelphia Grace Project, especially for this Give a Little Hope to the kids, right? That project that you're trying to do right now. You need some money to help those kids, especially around Christmas time. So talk about how
with
people...
our Hope for the Holidays program coming up. We definitely need the help. So we have a website. It's www.teamgraceproject.org. You can donate on there. You can stay up to date with, what programs are going on, different like media coverage, stuff like that. We're working on getting our newsletter going again. But that's like the best way to kind of get an idea of what's going on. There's volunteer forms on there. There's contact forms. There's the nomination form for Give a Little Hope. Our email address, because if it's like a specific question you want to just email, if you want to email me directly, it's Megan Cohen at teamgraceproject.org, and it'll go straight to me, and I'll answer, help in any way that I can. We have Facebook, we have Instagram. So any of those ways, like if you want to stay connected, those are the ways to do it. And I'm always here, sometimes it takes me a little bit to get back to everyone. But you can always directly reach out to me if you have any questions, and I'm going to get back to you.
Megan, such amazing and exciting work that you're doing. Thank you for sharing some of your time with us and sharing your story. What a touching story. And a story of hope, right? We love putting out those stories of hope that make a difference in people's lives. So thanks for giving back, what was given to you. And thanks for being with us and sharing today.
Thank you for having me.